Well, the wheel just keeps on turning, doesn't it? Which works very well for this episode of Ups and Downs for SmackDown. Hello, my name is Simon Miller. Welcome to joining me. And if you haven't been keeping up to date, that's right. Earlier this week, we introduced the Dress Ups and Downs wheel. We spin it, and as always, I cross my arms and go, why did I do this? It's an astronaut. I mean, you at least think it would have come with some kind of a helmet. That'll do. Let's up those downs. Sonya Deville and Liv Morgan kicked off this week's episode of SmackDown in a no DQ match, and I will tell you this, they figuratively and literally smashed it. They even got a "This is awesome" chant, which they totally deserved. Really good. It was mostly because they were just allowed to go for it, and of course in the early going they were both trying to get a kendo stick. And don't worry about the fact that kendo sticks always pop up in professional wrestling. We've already talked about the fact that they are native to the wrestling environment, hence why they're always there. But also, too, you can discover this when you learn about the Latin. It does indeed come from the Latin ken, which means ring, and do, which means underneath. So you put them together, and what do you get? Ring underneath. It didn't work because Morgan jumped off Sympathy Steel steps, and then they were both going after this stick. And I was like, why didn't you just go to a park? And of course, it was Liv that eventually got it, and she started to smack the shit out of Sonya Deville. What really made me laugh is even though she was using one weapon, all the fans then started to go, we want tables. I was like, isn't this enough? Isn't watching one woman get destroyed enough for you? Apparently not. Bless Sonya Deville too, because as soon as Liv Morgan did go to get a table, she was just like, nope. And she pushed it back under the ring, and everybody booed her. And that's also how you parent. I mean, very sadly for her, Liv Morgan has been watching professional wrestling, so she did a couple of dives, and she was eventually able to set up the table. I mean, it took her about 72,000 years, but unless you are the head of one, you don't really know what you're doing. This spot rocked, however, because Sonya indeed was able to get back in control, and she was all like, haha, I'm going to German suplex Liv Morgan off the ring apron, through the table, and even though Liv held on for a little bit, eventually she just went smug emoji and kind of like launched both of them through the wood, and then she was all like, well, I really enjoyed that. Because she's crazy now. We soon moved on to chairs and Liv got powerbombed into those, but once again she was dancing around because apparently her superpower is that she likes violence. And I guess this is the case because she got back to her feet, she hit the Oblivion into the steel, Sonya Deville was done, 1, 2, 3. So it also goes to show that WWE absolutely had a plan post all the world title stuff. I'm actually really enjoying it, getting it up. And then died. Not literally. Because the returning Emma was chatting to Megan Morant and saying, oh man, I'm so happy to be home in WWE. Then she got interrupted by Xia Li of all people. She was like, Emma, you're so weak. And I was like, really, Xia? You can never even make it to the show. Emma must have agreed because she took her forearm and just smashed it right into Xia's face. And I presume that this is going to be our first feud. And I'm like, yeah, it's nice to have Emma back. Xia needs something to do. We shall wait and see. We then got it double confirmed that yes, Jake Paul is going to accompany Logan Paul later when he does indeed take on Roman Reigns, so we're definitely in the Phantom Zone when we got another one of these Viking Raiders videos. And I'll tell you this, if they're not coming back soon with Sarah Logan, whoever is editing these things received a very different memo. And then we continued the rise on the main roster of LA Knight. I like this guy. Because he was taking on Ricochet, and beforehand, LA Knight just went mega asshole. Because he was walking to the ring saying, haha, all you fans are incels. And then he turned his attention to Samantha Irvin, the ring announcer, and said, you screwed up like this week, so you are nothing but a Pop-Tart announcer. I've been thinking about it, I'm like, a Pop-Tart announcer? Actually, that sounds pretty good. He went in on her so hard, eventually Ricochet just went whoop, and he flew over the top rope and took him out. And once again, we're not doing anything specific with Rick at the moment, but you can just feel it in the bones. At some point in the future, Triple H is going to pull that trigger. This is going to be fantastic. Knight totally gets his role too, because even when he did get back into this thing, he went for a moonsault and totally missed. And that's when Ricochet was allowed to hit his go button. And if you just go quiet and watch him in the wild, it's like, damn it, what beauty. And then it get a little bit weird because Ricochet was posing, so LA Knight did some posing, so Ricochet did some posing, so LA Knight went to the top rope and did some posing, and it was a little bit like somebody kept accidentally knocking the analog stick on the PlayStation controller. The last one was really cool because when LA was doing that, Ricochet just jumped up there and gave him this Hurricane Rana, but as we've already established, LA Knight is a dick, so as soon as he saw Ricochet's ass, he hit the most devastating move in all of sports entertainment, the surprise roll-up, and he held the tights, and he stole the pin. What an asshole. But like I say, I do quite like LA Knight, and I want to see what we're going to do with him, and I can just feel all the good stuff coming for Ricochet. This was a fun match. The Bloodline were then on TV, and they're the best. They're the ones. Jey Uso, as ever, was losing his mind because he's not very Usy these days, and he was all like, man, we should go out there and we should call out the Brawling Brutes and we should beat the hell out of him. Roman Reigns ain't here, and that's what I want to do. He even went as far to say that this had nothing to do with the Bloodline because it was an Uso thing, especially because before Sami Zayn even got into the group, Jimmy and Jey were champions so they can handle their business. And even after Jey walked off, Jimmy, who's usually on Sami Zayn's side, was like, he's got a point. He walked off too. Sonya kind of just stood there the whole time being like, I don't know what's going on. And Sam did cry out, come back, my dogs, but they did not. So we continue to plant these seeds. And look, because I was away when we had that amazing Bloodline segment when they all cracked up, I am going to give this an up. It's one of the best storylines WWE has done for years. All this stuff with Bray Wyatt too. Pretty sure he's feuding with himself. But he was in the back once again trying to be real and saying I'm a human being and I have emotions. Sometimes I can be happy and sometimes I can be sad. But one thing I don't like is being interrupted. I was like, bro, you picked entirely the wrong position. Have you watched professional wrestling? People get interrupted all the time. We used to have a counter. Weirdly, a member of the SmackDown crew then got in shot and Bray decided this counted as an interruption. So he went absolutely crazy at this fool as all these weird, spooky, wooky images kind of appeared on the screen. This guy had to apologize and try and calm Bray Wyatt down, and of course we did see a picture of Uncle Howdy, or Unky Howdy, whatever the hell we're calling him, Unky Howie, I can't remember his stupid name. He does have a wonderful moustache. And as ever, do I know where this is going? No. Am I a little bit confused? Yes. But on the other hand, does this get me so intrigued, you bet your ass, that it kind of feels like we're going to do something at Crown Jewel or right after it. So once again, given that I was away last week, just for all the Bray Wyatt gloriness, giving it up. And then out came the flippin' Usos. The fans were chanting Usi almost immediately, and Jimmy and Jey told us that in 9 days' time, they will surpass the New Day's tag team title record. And they're very proud of that because it's absolutely going to happen. You can't just say things like that though. So out did walk New Day and Kofi Kingston. They were very honest here. They were like, hello Jey, hello Jimmy. Just so you know, we don't want you to beat the Brawling Brutes at the weekend. And if you do, know when you get back to SmackDown, we're gonna be waiting. Just ignore that stipulation from a few months ago, it didn't count. This is when Butch and Ridge Holland just teleported in from nowhere. And not only did they start to beat up the Usos, but so did the New Day. And I kind of started twirling around going, wait a minute, who is the good guys and who are the bad guys here? Especially because who came out to make the save? It was Solo Sikoa, it was Sami Zayn. They sent all the baby faces packing. And yeah, I felt all warm and fuzzy in my tum-tum. Everybody was just chanting for Sami Uso as well, so I started to cry because I was so damn happy. And here's what we have to do. Sometimes you just have to listen to the crowd and go with it. It should absolutely be Sami Zayn who is the guy to dethrone Roman Reigns. I know that wasn't part of the plan. I know it doesn't help a young and up-and-coming star, but this would be one of those moments you remember forever, especially because WWE has done so good with this. And in fact, they're doing so well, I am giving it another up. That's right, I've gone crazy with Bloodline ups today. That sounds terrible. We were then interviewing Rey Mysterio, who was getting ready for his Intercontinental Championship match with Gunther, when he was all like, I really miss my son. I was like, damn it, Rey, you've got to remember he's a dick. But it's not my fault, you boring asshole, but he also promised to win the Intercontinental Championship later, when it was time for Shayna Baszler versus Natalya. I can't lie, all it took was that tease between Baszler and Ronda Rousey, when I was like, oh man, I hope we do what I think we're going to do. And I do think that we are doing what I hope we were going to do. Because this whole match essentially should have been someone in the crowd going, we're trying to turn Shayna Baszler back to the NXT version. Please, everybody sit down and just enjoy. I suppose she kind of did that when she first debuted, when she was a vampire and she tried to eat Becky Lynch. But here, she was just grabbing Natty, and if she could stomp on something, she would stomp on it. Stomped on her arm, stomped on her leg, stomped on her face. And then eventually, she locked in the Kirifuda clutch, Natalya lost, and afterwards Ronda Rousey was like, break her nose. I think you should break her nose. So Shayna ran in, she kneed Natalya right in the face, and I tell you, it looked like she broke her nose. This is proof that you can rehab someone in around about 5 minutes, and I will tell you this. I would make Ronda Rousey and Shayna Baszler the women's tag team champions within the next few months. I mean, if you need to sort those titles out, this would be the way to do it. What an absolutely fantastic duo that we probably should have had a year ago. And then a quick video for Karrion Kross and Drew McIntyre, who will be competing in the steel cage at Crown Jewel. And it also means after that car accident, we haven't really done anything significant with either of these guys. So now my eyebrow goes up because what the hell is going to happen at the premium live event? It was far more obvious with MVP though, because he came out to give his surprise to Braun Strowman. And honestly, what a crappy surprise this was, because Umbut was all like, hey Braun, I've got 5 guys for you to take on. Now 1, why is MVP allowed to make matches? 2, he's going to get sued by the burger chain 5 guys. And 3, these dudes that they chose, they came out and they were so damn scared. I was like, why have you found people that are terrified? You should have gone and got Goldberg. This doubled when they all heard rah, and out came Braun Strowman, who just ran through these guys. But I suppose the big takeaway is when Umvup went to hit him with his stick, Braun stopped him. And he didn't just give him 1 power slam, didn't just give him 2 power slams, he gave him the trifecta of slams. I wouldn't say that I'm overly into this feud, and this was fine, but WWE is keeping it simple, which helps. But now, unlike my prediction video for Crown Jewel, I'm starting to think that maybe, just maybe, Omos is gonna defeat Braun Strowman, and I don't know what that world looks like. Also, where the hell was Omos here? Why wasn't he coming out to help his friend? I suppose he was looking in the mirror going, wow, I am really tall. So I don't think I'm going to think about this much after the fact, but I will give it an up. I mean, it is just big men slapping man meat, and as Big E told us, that's absolutely fine. Gunther then tried to pull the wool over his eyes because he was all like, I am Gunther, the Intercontinental Champion, and I shall defend this with respect, dignity, and honor. He turned into a goober straight away. He's like, I tell you who has no dignity and who has no honor. Flipping Rey Mysterio. He also said that he was going to be the Intercontinental Champion forever, and I went and did my research, and forever is a long-ass time. Well, after thinking about it, I don't necessarily believe it. We also got told at some point around here that next week the SmackDown World Cup starts. I don't really know what the SmackDown World Cup is, other than the fact that the Football Soccer World Cup starts soon, and somebody in WWE was all like, oh man, we can steal some of their SEO. Why the hell not? All of this did mean it was time for our main event with the IC Championship on the line. It was Gunther versus Rey Mysterio, and I shall tell you this, I absolutely loved it. They just did exactly what they should have done too, because Gunther is really big and Rey Mysterio is not very big. So every time Gunther got his hands on him, he just threw him around the ring. He then took a few seconds and he threw him around the ring. And any time he didn't know what else to do, he would grab Rey Mysterio and he would throw him around the ring. I mean, at one time, he powerbombed him right into the ring apron. And I checked, it's the hardest part of the ring. We also need to remember that Rey Mysterio is 47 years old and 48 years old in a few weeks, and he is still flying around the place like an absolute hero. So if he isn't objectively one of the best wrestlers ever, or listen to my words, he just is. There was this crazy bit where Gunther was trying to slam Rey, but Mysterio wouldn't let him because he was like some kind of glue bug. And after he had climbed round to the bank of Gunther, he just threw him into the mat. And then he was like, oh, I'm going to go for the 619. For that, though, he went for a springboard and applied a sleeper. And why wouldn't you go 1980s when you're trying to take on a massive guy? And the whole thing here was the big tease that maybe, just maybe, if Rey Mysterio can get a flipping and a flopping, he may be able to steal the win. Kind of strangely, we then came back from the commercial break and Rey Mysterio was just on the floor and Gunther was standing tall. So I can only presume that Gunther must have gone, Dominic. And and Rey was so sad he just collapsed to the floor with all the emotion. Rey did soon start fighting back because of course you have to do the whole David versus Goliath thing, although every single time he went for the splash, Gunther stopped him, including at one point when they were tussling on the top, the IC champ pretended he was going to powerbomb Rey Mysterio, who transitioned and reversed this in midair and gave Gunther a Hurricane Rana. So that just gets a round of applause. It was amazing. We also did this again after Rey Mysterio pulled out a sunset flip from nowhere. And I was like, how is he doing this? And he was able to kick out of the powerbomb. And I kind of stopped in motion during that because I didn't see it coming. But this was just basically giving a little something to Rey, because he got back to his feet and Gunther lariated him so hard, I'm amazed his mask stayed on and he retained his belt. This absolutely rocked though, and you can give me more of this every single time of the week. It is getting the easiest up of the night. Which also brought us to the end of SmackDown, which was a very succinct show, because of course they taped it last week because everyone's in Saudi Arabia right now, but I'm still going to give it an up. Sometimes these pay-per-views, premium live events can be a little bit controversial, but we'll talk about that when we get to the ups and downs for Crown Jewel tomorrow. Now please do leave a comment below and let me know what you thought about last night's episode of SmackDown. Like the video, share the video and subscribe. Head over to WhatCulture.com where you can read yourself some articles. Come follow us on social media because why the hell not? And watch more videos. They get lonely. My name is Simon the Astronaut. Thank you very much for joining me as always, and I will see you soon.